Roughly 2 years ago, I switched from a hodgepodge network setup with pfSense as a gateway to going full GigaChad with the UniFi network ecosystem. And since then, my setup has only grown into something completely and utterly overkill. So today, we're going to take a look at my personal UniFi deployment from the hardware to the clients, the firewall rules, and basically everything I have going on, even my recent switch to UniFi Protect. Let me make something perfectly clear before we dive in though. Yes, I'm a YouTuber who gets sent stuff by Ubiquiti. Now, does that impact what I run in my setup? Obviously. I'll tell you right now that I have two $5,000 100 gig campus aggregation switches deployed, and you think I'd be running those in my home lab if I wasn't sent them for free? No, absolutely not. So don't take this as being the most optimal, most efficient setup. Treat this as entertainment because at the end of the day, I'm just a circus clown. Okay, here we go. Let's just jump into the hardware. I basically have 3 locations in my house where there's a significant deployment. The main server room, one of our bedroom closets, and my studio, and you'll see why as we get into it. And I think the best way to actually cover this is to jump in the topology graph here in UniFi Network. So let's go there. Ready? 1, 2. That really wasn't impressive. Okay, here we are. Look at that. That's beautiful, right? So here's a layout of everything. So obviously we're going to start at the top or the side, however you have yours configured, whatever. So yes, multiple WANs. I am running multiple WANs. You can see my main one is AT&T and my backup is Comcast. My AT&T one is 2.5 gig fiber. Very nice. And the Comcast is a backup. I think it's 100 down, 100 up, whatever. We'll get into the configuration for that in a bit. But that feeds into my main gateway here, which is a UDM Pro Max. So nothing too crazy. Obviously, this is one of their high-end gateways, but as you'll see in a bit, I have a bit more ridiculous things in here. But yeah, I mean, they feed into here, goes downstream to our next device or devices, which is the ECS aggregation switch. So you can see I have 2. The only reason I have 2 right now is because I'm working on a video for these. So if we click on that, you can see 1, and I guess they combine them here. Interesting. So this is 1. Let's just go to Port Manager really quickly. And you can see once you have them set up in an MC lag configuration, it'll show them both kind of as one cohesive system, which I do have. So you can see on these ports, they are connected together to each other to form that multi-chassis lag setup. And then downstream, we have one 100 gig client, my main PC right here, and my cluster, my HL4 cluster. If you haven't seen that video, those have dual 25 gig network connections. So those feed into here. One of them is doing the MC lag setup as well, and then some downstream switches. But let's go back into the topology. So aggregation switches are nice because it gives you that common point to connect everything downstream back to a single device. And you don't have to in a home deployment. It usually doesn't matter. We have a single 10 gig connection back to the gateway, which is our DHCP client and does all the inter VLAN routing. You could theoretically make this your router and have that do all the inter VLAN traffic, but for my home setup, it really doesn't matter. I'll probably do it in the future. But again, aggregation switches are nice. Doesn't have to be this crazy one. They have a pro one and a regular one. Just pick the one that fits your budget and your deployment. But let's see what we have downstream. I guess we'll just go down the list, right? That makes sense? Sure. So we'll start with the USW Pro HD24 PoE, which is a pretty awesome newer switch, 24 ports, all with PoE. And you can see I'm running a lot of Raspberry Pis off of here, as well as some IPMI. I think this is kind of used as my non-UniFi Protect PoE deployment. You can see a lot of these are using the PoE, 6 watts, 3 watts, 3, 4, and a tiny pilot also using PoE. You can see I have a lot of open stuff here because again, I'm a cringy YouTuber who gets sent stuff for free. Now down here, we have the Pro Max 24 PoE. And if we go into there, you'll see this is what's driving a lot of my access points and my Protect cameras. 3 access points, 4 access points, 4 cameras, and 2 switches down the line. So I could probably consolidate this, honestly. But when you're trying out stuff, you tend to accumulate switches and that's where I'm at in my life. Now this ProMax 16 PoE, that is actually sitting in my entryway rack here in my studio. And that is just kind of a test rack I have, and I needed a switch in there. The ProMax 16 PoE kind of fit that bill of everything I really needed in there. It has two 10 gig ports and a bunch of PoE. You can see I'm not really using much of it now because things come and go in there, and I tend to not have stuff running in there a lot, but it is nice having a decent switch in there when I do need to run stuff. So the 10 gig port is actually feeding a Flex XG, which I still think is one of the best little compact switches you can get. You can see that is feeding it here. It's a 4-port 10 gig switch. It's awesome. That feeds the 10 gig devices I need in the test rack. It's great. Things like $300 now. Okay, next switch, the Enterprise XG24. This thing is out of control. It is 24 10 gig ports, which is totally ridiculous and unnecessary. Now, there was a point where I actually needed a bunch of 10 gig ports because my cluster at the time had dual 10 gig NIC on each device. So I was filling up, roughly probably 12 10 gig ports routinely. But as you saw, I switched to dual 25. So this has a bunch of open ports, common theme. Yes, I know. Completely overkill. Like I said, this is ridiculous. And last but not least, the Enterprise 8 PoE. Now this is what sits in my bedroom closet, or not my bedroom, but one of the bedrooms in my house. This is the switch that lives in there because when the house was built, they ran all of the Cat 6 or Cat 5e to that bedroom. And instead of pulling it all out and rerunning it to the garage where my main rack is, I just left it there and threw this guy in there to feed all of that, along with another tiny little switch for feeding more non-PoE devices and non-2.5 gig stuff. You can see that's also feeding a mini in our bedroom, our main bedroom, a mini behind the TV, which is where all the Cat 5 runs were, and then a U7 Pro in wall with a 2.5 gig backhaul, which is a nice feature to have on here. And you can see that is fed back into my aggregation switch on a 10 gig line. All of these are at least 10 gig, if I remember correctly. We have 25 to our Enterprise XG24, 10 gig here, 10 gig here, 10 gig here, which is nice if you're doing, high speed transfers between switches or any type of inter VLAN routing that has to go back to our gateway. There's at least a 10 gig line there. So yeah. So I guess we already dipped into this last leg of things. I already talked about these that are connected to the 8 PoE. I talked about the 10 gig switch that's connected to the ProMax 16 in the little test rack. Down here, connected to the ProMax 24, we have a couple of things. Another mini. You'll see these pop up a lot. These things are fantastic. I think they're $20 for the 1 gig. The 2.5 gig just came out. I think it's like 30, 40, I don't know. Great that I buy like the 5-pack because you're going to use them everywhere. The U7 Pro Outdoor. I installed this outdoors on the front of my garage. I was tired of being in the cul-de-sac, hanging out with the kids, the neighbors, and not having proper Wi-Fi. So yeah, now I have ridiculous Wi-Fi out in the front of my house. The U7 Pro Max, that is sitting right here in my studio. It's a U7 Pro Max, Wi-Fi 7. Cool. Oh, look, another mini. Fantastic. That's actually sitting right here. And the last two things, the patio is my U6 long range, and that sits for my backyard. I could probably update it to something else, but it's been running fantastic since I deployed this. This is probably my longest living current access point in my deployment. It's been working great. No issues with connectivity on my back patio. So yeah, this is great. And then the E7, this thing is very overkill. I haven't done a video on it just yet. That's part of the enterprise video I'm working on. But yeah, this thing is crazy. It's in my living room, the middle of my house. Generally, you wouldn't have this in a household deployment. But again, testing things. It's been working great. It's fast. That's what you can expect out of things like this. But yeah, that is my setup. Those are my UniFi devices. If we change this to look at the wired clients, it'll turn into something that's probably going to overstimulate me, but let's try it. Yeah, so here's it with all the wired clients, which, I mean, it's a little ridiculous. And some of these just aren't named properly. But yeah, you can see how I do have some clients connected directly to that aggregation switch. That is my cluster, and a couple of other random things here and there. But yeah, lots of high-speed networking. It is ridiculous. It is overkill. Nobody needs this. I've gone on the record in saying 10 gig is the most you need in a home deployment. If you're a turbo nerd, go for something higher. But yeah, overkill to the max. So if we go in here and look at the actual devices page, you'll see some information on everything. Not that there's anything extra to really show here. You can see the speed it's connected at and the Wi-Fi experience. Excellent, fantastic. We have a 200 gig down here, comical. And down here, you'll see my protect. We'll probably get to that in a bit. I really don't know what order I'm doing all this in because there is no script. Now you see a lot of these devices and you're probably thinking, wow, where do I get those? Now, obviously, you can go shop on Ubiquiti store, but if you want to see them and touch them and taste them in person, guess where you can go? Yep, that's right. It's Micro Center. And they're probably the only brick and mortar place I know that carries Ubiquiti stuff. And man, they carry a lot. They have way more than you'd expect, honestly. They have all the switches you need, from the big boys to the little tiny boys that I was raving about. They have all the gateways that you need. They actually have my favorite device right now, which is the Dream Router 7. Awesome little device. Gateway, switch, PoE, Wi-Fi 7, all in one. Cool looking package. Then they got the big boys in the Wi-Fi deployment setups, and even the little tiny boys, if that's kind of your thing. I'm not judging. They even have some devices that I honestly didn't know existed or hadn't seen before. So that's pretty nifty. So if you're looking to get your hands on some Ubiquiti stuff and you don't want to wait around for the postman to come deliver it, check out Micro Center. They got everything. Tell them Brett from Raid Owl sent you, and they'll give you not a discount, maybe a firm handshake, which is just as good. Maybe? Anyway, let's dive back into it. So how about now we dive into some of the configuration I have set up. So I guess we'll start with networks because that makes sense. So here you can see all the different VLANs I have. So my default one, I have a guest one, IoT, a LAN 2 for testing, external for externally facing devices, Ceph, management, and another test one, apparently. So you can see there are only 3 that are actively being used right now, and that kind of makes sense. So default is my main LAN, obviously. Guest is for, you guessed it, you guys are so smart, for my guests. I don't have a guest here right now. That's why there's nothing on there. IoT, this is where all the IoT stuff goes. And if we take a look at that, you can see I don't have much set up here in terms of default setups. I do all of my firewall configurations manually, but you can go in here, configure it to isolate network. So these 2 configurations right here are actually really useful. The guest network and the isolate network checkboxes. So you can read about them, but essentially the guest one isolates it from other networks that are not defined as guest networks. So if you have multiple ones, those networks can talk to each other. Isolate essentially isolates this network from everything. Next, we have LAN 2, which is what I use to drive my downstream Omada setup, but that's not running right now. When I test stuff out, I boot that up, but right now it's not running. External, there's one client or one lease right now for an externally facing thing that hosts a lot of my external, obviously facing stuff. That's my Docker setup. You can see it's the lone one on here. It's perfectly fine, working as expected. Ceph, another VLAN, it doesn't have any leases because they're statically set, but my HL4 cluster is running Ceph. Its own backend network runs off of that Ceph VLAN. So there are clients on there. There's just no DHCP reservations. Management was something I was playing around with. We could honestly probably delete this. And test is just a random one that I use whenever I need to test something. So yeah, decent little setup. Some I could probably get rid of, but you know, whatever. They're not bothering me. So jumping into Wi-Fi, you'll see how I have my Wi-Fi configured. I have 4 SSIDs throughout my deployment. I have UniFi, UniFi Guest, UniFi IoT, and UniFi 7. They're pretty self-explanatory here, but I'll go over them. UniFi encompasses everything. So every single access point can be used, every single Wi-Fi band. It's the main one that's being used. UniFi Guest, it can use 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, no sexy 6 gigahertz for any of my guests. By default, it uses that guest network, which obviously makes sense. Same thing with the IoT, uses the IoT network 2.4 and 5 only. And then UniFi 7, it's on the same default network, but it's only 6 gigahertz and uses MLO. And again, this is for testing right now because this is a pretty new feature within UniFi Network. That, and combined with the fact I don't have a lot of Wi-Fi 7 devices that use 6 gigahertz. And here's a bunch of stuff. Channel plan, you can exclude them from default moving channels for your radio signals. I don't have any of that configured, honestly. If I wanted a better Wi-Fi setup, I probably would, but it's working fine, so no complaints. Going into internet section, you'll see how I have my WAN set up. Now, like I mentioned before, I have 2. AT&T is my primary, Xfinity is my backup. You can see the WAN mode we're using here is that failover, meaning that it's always going to use AT&T because it's fast. Only if that's down will it switch to my backup, which is WAN 2, which is Comcast. And you can set it to load balancing if you have 2 WANs or multiple WANs that you want to be shared equally, but I don't. I use it as failover. If you do load balancing, you can set a percentage. So 50-50, 60-40, 99-1, whatever you want. But yeah, mine's failover. All right, VPN. There are multiple things you can do in this section. So the first thing being teleport, which is UniFi's kind of built-in, easy to use VPN setup. I do have that set up to use. It is convenient if you're using a device that has the UniFi app or makes it easy to connect to. Go ahead, use teleport. Basically no configuration at all. Super easy to do. But if you want something a bit more customizable, you can go into VPN server and you can set up your own. So they have OpenVPN, they have WireGuard, L2TP if you want to use that. But you can see for me, I'm using OpenVPN, and I did have a WireGuard, but I turned that off. I've just found better compatibility with OpenVPN, so that's what I use. A VPN client, this is the other way around. So if you want devices going out to go through a VPN, you can set up a VPN client here and use that as its own interface. I use PIA. That's my VPN of choice that I pay for. Works great. Been using it for years. That's what I have set up in here. It does use OpenVPN, so it plays nicely. See, it's connected. We're all good to go. To create it, you can literally just drag in the OpenVPN configuration file, and that's kind of it. It just connects. It's really nice. And site-to-site VPN, I don't have this set up yet because I don't really need it. I'm not trying to connect multiple sites together through VPN, but if you're running a business, you have multiple sites with UniFi at each one of them. You'll set up site-to-site VPN. Everything will connect nicely depending on which location it's at. Doesn't matter. They'll all be able to talk to each other if that's how you want to set it up. So yeah, lots of useful VPN features built in here. All right, security. This probably deserves its own entire video, but I'll try to cover it at a high level. So I'm still using the old setup. Now here you can see the notification to switch to the new zone-based firewall, which I do think is really awesome. There are a couple of little things that I don't like about it, which is why I haven't switched. Okay, so if we look at some of my rules set up that are done by specific clients or IP addresses, we have allow K3S nodes to hit Ceph and load balancer. So if we go into here and take a look at what it's actually doing, is it's saying there are some devices on my external network, which is just my Docker setup, that need to hit some stuff internally, which is Ceph. This allows that external client to be able to communicate with just my Ceph instance, the host of the Ceph instance. So this is the specific device on that external network. I could probably combine this and the other one since that one's old. So these are all the clients that need that access to that Docker setup. There's probably a better way to do this. If you're looking through all this and you're thinking, Brett, that is not the best way to do it. Probably. I'm not a network engineer. I just do what works for me. Now in our internet rules, we have two, and all these are doing is limiting the bandwidth of the two networks. So you can see limit guest network bandwidth to 100 megabit up and 100 megabit down, which, don't want your guests getting too comfy, right? Limit IoT bandwidth, same thing. None of my IoT devices need anything crazy, so this is what they are limited to. Going into region, if you want to block specific regions for whatever reason, you can. I have Russia blocked. So if you want to add other countries to that, go ahead. No one's going to judge you. People might judge you. So here you can see my main rules essentially. So we have a block LAN to IoT external and management from getting out or going out to my main network. This is basically just to prevent those from getting into my main network. I have no need for these outside of the specific rules that I showed you before. This just makes sure that if something happens on those, I accidentally expose something, it's not going to get back into my main network. So if you go to protection, you have a bit more configurations here. I'm not really using anything too heavily. Region blocking, you can set this here if you want. You can set it in the rules, same concept. Ad blocking, you can configure that as well. Content filtering, not doing any of that. This is where you can turn on intrusion prevention, so IPS. I have that on. It makes sense if you want to monitor your traffic and have it by default block certain things. It's fantastic. I recommend using it. So routing, this is where you're going to be doing your port forwarding, NAT stuff. It has DNS in here. But the first thing you'll see is policy-based routing. So remember how I said you can set up a VPN client in here and use that as an interface? Well, yeah, that's what I'm doing. So I have this PIA route. And if you click on that, you'll see what's happening is that if the source network is guest and the destination is anywhere, use the PIA interface. So you can see I could specifically have it go through a WAN interface, but you'll see that VPN client is actually configured as an interface, so we can select it here. So that means any guest, they can search whatever goofy shit they want. It's on its own VPN. They're going through their own VPN client, being PIA. If PIA goes down, this kill switch is activated, meaning they get no internet at all. So I don't trust my guests. That's why they go through a VPN. Port forwarding, this is port forwarding. There's not much there. I have stuff for Minecraft servers, for my Nginx proxy manager, and for Plex. That's it. Nothing too crazy. None of this. DNS. So this is nice. This is a relatively new page. You can manage all your DNS entries, your custom ones. They're all located here. Very nice, super convenient. And your NAT. I have the basic ones set by default. If you want some more specific NAT features, you can go in here and adjust them accordingly. Profiles, nothing interesting to see here at all. Some Wi-Fi speed limits if you want to set that. I don't think I even use them. Radius server, not being used. Network objects. Yeah, so this is used, actually a pretty useful feature. I actually skipped this, so we're going to go back. So here I have a Cloudflare network object. And what that is a list of all the Cloudflare servers and subnets. And what I can use that for is when I'm creating a firewall rule. If I go to my internet ones, you'll see here I have allow Cloudflare. And I can say everything coming from those Cloudflare IPs, allow that in on HTTPS, which is nice because that means anything I have publicly exposed goes through Cloudflare, and I'm not just opening 443 to everybody. 443 is open to only Cloudflare IPs. So super convenient there. Really nice. You'll see that that one is set before here. So it takes priority, allow Cloudflare users in, but then block 443 to everything else. So yeah, really cool setup. If you have Cloudflare as your DNS provider, set something up like this. It's easy, works great. And that's kind of the main things. Now, I'm not going to go into all the features of Unified Network. I just kind of wanted to show you what makes mine unique and a little bit different from maybe your setup. And I guess that's kind of it really, I'm not doing anything too crazy with the radios. They did upgrade this page, which is nice. They've broken down the information a lot better for regular users to kind of go in here and see kind of what's going on with Wi-Fi, because I've talked about before, I don't like covering Wi-Fi videos on this channel because Wi-Fi is so inconsistent and so variable from person to person, from deployment to deployment, that I just let my Wi-Fi vibe. I use it, I talk about it briefly, and we go about our lives. I almost forgot. I was going to talk about Protect. So yeah, I switched to Protect. Here's my setup. It's probably all blurred out because I don't want you guys seeing where I live or anything, because some of you are perverts. Yeah, maybe in a future video, I'll go in depth about my switch to UniFi Protect, but so far, so good. I do like the feature where if you click on one, you can set these little icons that will take you to each location. Very cool. There's plenty of features that go into Protect. Yep, that's my UniFi network setup. A brief tease at Protect. It is completely overkill. I know. Like I said earlier, it's not the most efficient. It's not the best setup, but I like it. It works for me. I enjoy expanding it, trying new things out. UniFi is constantly releasing new products, as you've seen from my channel or Cody's channel or whoever you watch on your UniFi updates. But yeah, that's it. What do you think? Besides Overkill, let me know down in the comments. What do you have set up? I'm really curious to hear about what you guys are running in your home labs or just in your home in general. But that's all I have for you today. If you liked it, then drop a like. If you enjoy stuff like this, then go ahead and subscribe, because there's going to be more UniFi content. I'll give a huge shout out to my YouTube members and my Patreons. You guys are my aggregation switch with 24 100 gig ports and layer 3 compatibility and all that good stuff. You guys are the best. And if you're still watching, you're Omada. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.